Hey y'all, what is going on? What is going on? It's your girl, Melba Pearson, Melba for Miami, Melba for Justice, also known as the resident legal diva, and it is time for another Mondays with Melba. Well, y'all better get ready because we've got an action packed episode today with the amazing Karla Hernandez Mats, president of the United Teachers of Dade. Karla, welcome again to Mondays with Melba, and thank you so much for joining us.
Melba, it's always my pleasure. I love what you do. We're in this fight together, trying to make our communities better. So I'm all yours.
Thank you. Thank you. So, can you introduce yourself to the newer members of the Mondays with Melba family and just share a little bit about where you teach and sort of your pathway to leadership and all that good stuff?
Awesome. Well, my name is Karla Hernandez Mats. I am the president of United Teachers of Dade. United Teachers of Dade is the largest teachers union in the southeastern part of the United States, and certainly that means Florida. And we're an advocacy organization. We fight for public education. We want to ensure that we have the resources needed for our students in our classes. And that means that we fight for the well being of the educators and all those in our school community that help us educate kids. So we're the union. We believe in equity and fair treatment, in fair wages, benefits, healthcare for our people. And, that's something that's really important. I know it's going to be one of the topics that we talk about today, but really just fighting for public education and understanding that our classrooms are a microcosm of everything that happens in the community. And so a lot of the issues that we hear outside of the community, we hear them on the inside as well because our students are talking about them.
Absolutely. So, this year has been a little crazy, right? It's been a little more challenging than it has been in prior years. Can you share a little bit about the new law that basically threw union organizing into a tailspin, but did not stop the train, just
Right.
kind of delayed it a bit?
Yeah, so last year, which was one of the most conservative legislative sessions that we've seen in our Florida history, we saw that some of those attacks were on working people. And so Governor DeSantis signed a law that was, according to their own spokespeople, it was written by the Freedom Foundation, an out of state group out of Washington State that is a right wing group funded by Betsy DeVos, the Koch brothers, that are anti working people. Like they lobby against pensions, they lobby against small class sizes, and they're anti union. So they create this law, it gets passed, they lobby it. A lot of union folks from all trades fly up to Tallahassee, which is, a feat in itself, to, talk about how this law is not fixing anything. It's going to create issues for working people who deserve to have rights and respect in their workplaces. And it gets passed party lines. All the Republicans pass it on the Senate, on the House. It gets signed by the governor. And so basically what it does is that it creates a system where employees are not free to do what they want to with their own paychecks, with the money that they've earned. So the law eliminates the ability of an employee to pay for their union membership through direct deposit or direct withdrawal, something that's been in existence in the Florida, state for over 50 years. They eliminated it to make it difficult, to make it harder for unions to exist. They also created an arbitrary threshold. They said that if unions are not at 60% membership, then they are not viable organizations. And we know that none of the GOP lawmakers have been elected themselves by over 60% of the constituents that they represent. Yet these are these arbitrary, restrictions and regulations that they make on unions. So making it very difficult, trying to decertify unions, attacking workplace people. Unfortunately, we've seen some of the negative effects. There's been a couple of locals throughout the state that have lost their ability to negotiate and have a union because of how egregious these laws are. They're more egregious than the ones in Wisconsin, and we wish they would have made more national headlines about it. But this is basically where we're at. We are living in a state where our governor and state GOP lawmakers want workers to have less rights, want people to be cheap labor, where they don't have health care and benefits, contracts, and the collective benefit of the union, of a movement of people that are actively lobbying for and asking for things that are necessary for them to do their jobs right. So because we're the teachers union, we're seeing ourselves in the front line with this. There's a phony organization that has been embedded in Miami-Dade from the Freedom Foundation to attack us because, like I said earlier, we're the largest union. So the bullseye's on us. An interesting perspective that a lot of people have brought up is that although this is supposed to impact all working people and all unions, they cut out police, fire, and correctional officers. And everybody, there's no speculation about it, right? Everybody knows that these are the unions that endorsed Governor DeSantis. So it's fascism, right? Because if it's good for the geese, it's good for the gander, right? And so they're saying that unions are bad, but it's only bad for certain groups, the groups that did not support the governor in his reelection, because those that did support the governor, they're free to have a union and to collect membership fees and to, negotiate for better contracts. So it's impacting working people all across the state. They're trying to just have cheap labor and people with no rights in the workplace.
Wow. I mean, it's the hypocrisy for me, right? Because, again, you're carving out three different groups of unions and then basically dismantling everyone else, which is horrible because, again, we're seeing the cost of living exploding here in South Florida generally, but especially in South Florida. The being able to negotiate better wages helps you be able to afford better housing, right? Or afford housing, period. So, this is, anyway, elections have consequences, y'all. Elections
100%.
have consequences.
Yep.
So there's another bill that passed that was pretty disturbing around child labor. Tell us a little bit about that.
So a child labor law passed. It is HB 49. And basically that law weakens child labor laws that have existed for a very long time. And, I like to talk about it. So thank you for that question, because, we are an education community. We're committed to making sure that students have access to education, and a high quality education at that. And when you see that our state government, instead of saying, how do we fund public education? Because, by the way, we're 48th in the nation in how we fund public schools. So Florida is near last in how it funds public schools. We're 48th. They're not giving us enough money for our pupils, for the students that are, in our classrooms. And they're creating these laws that disenfranchised kids, doesn't support them. Because when you're saying that now you're going to weaken labor laws so that 16 and 17-year-olds can work the same amount of hours as an 18-year-old as an adult, that 16 and 17-year-olds can work on a construction site, you are saying that you're inviting them to take that path instead of a pathway of education, of getting the resources that they need, the access to the resources that they need, so that they can help their parents in a different way. You're saying, forget education, go ahead and be cheap labor. And by the way, we're deteriorating unions. So it's not like the middle class is going to exist in the state of Florida at this pace. And this is what our state lawmakers have focused on, instead of like real issues like expanding child Medicaid. I mean, that's something that we've been talking about, for quite some years already. The Florida government continues to reject federal dollars. It's money that's there, that's available, federal dollars, so that our students, our children can have, Medicaid expansion. And so instead of like real issues, which is, I think the point of this legislative session, they didn't focus on anything substantial. It was less ratchet than it was last session, right? Because last year was just something else. But it doesn't make it better. It just means that it was less. And, we have like, this syndrome of, it wasn't as bad as last year, so it was better.
Right.
Like what are we talking about here? What are we doing? We're women, we're like, no, get out of that situation. Fight back. And so that's what we're doing. We're fighting back against all this bad legislation that isn't student focused, isn't community focused, isn't education focused. Certainly does not put people first in the state of Florida.
I mean, the child labor law really bothers me from the standpoint of every single study out there shows that the way out of poverty is through education, right? Because you get a higher education, you're able to get higher pay or apply for better jobs. And instead of encouraging that, or even encouraging 16 and 17-year-olds to go to trade schools, right? Get a plumbing license, or you know, what was it? Evac, or not evac? You know what I mean?
The
The
ASVAB.
Yes, that one. Yeah. Like get some of those certifications, because you could be starting at like 70, $80,000 a year, with just a high school diploma. So these are all different programs that could be pushed forward and supported and funded, but for some reason the governor and the legislature are not interested. But be that as it may, can you talk a little bit about how you've been able to fight back, and how UTD, is still in existence, still pushing forward, kind of walk us through what y'all have been able to accomplish with that?
Listen, we have seen the greatest amount of solidarity and growth than we've seen in recent history. And, it's because of the attacks on people. The state of Florida, besides being 48th in the nation in how it funds public education, also at the beginning of this school year had over 5,000 teacher vacancies open. 9,000 with paraprofessionals and other support staff that help teachers. So think about that. Statewide, it's a self-inflicted wound. You take away labor, right? Or you diminish labor laws where people don't have rights to speak up, to ask for better wages, to ask for better benefits, take away their contracts. You censor teachers, right? Because you're saying now that we can't talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. You ban books. We are, we're in constant competition with Texas on who's number one in banning the most books across this country. So you ban books, you censor teachers, you whitewash history, you say that you can only say certain things, you revisit standards, and the Commissioner of Education says that there was a benefit to slavery and we have to be able to teach that. And teachers are truth tellers. We go to school and yeah, we have the pedagogy, but we believe in teaching with authenticity and creating critical thinkers. And you create critical thinkers by sharing knowledge with them, making sure that they see multiple perspectives, that they have access to knowledge and books, that they can come up and construct their own conclusion based on the evidence that they see of the things that are historical facts. And when you have such a push to diminish education, the quality of education, to censor teachers, to ban books, to remove diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then you take away workers' rights in the state that is 48th in the nation in how it pays educators, you create a self-inflicted wound. The lawmakers have done this by themselves. Teachers, although they know that this is an honorable profession and they love it and they're passionate about teaching students, they just don't want to do it anymore. And if you go to a college campus, you'll see that most colleges of education are dwindling. They're getting smaller and smaller because the pay, at least in the state of Florida, is not adequate. You put in 4 years of education, you work and you're a professional, but you're not treated and paid as a professional, creates a huge gap in terms of the quality of people that you're able to retain and attract. And so, just to put this in perspective, the state governor and government, right? They funded education. I think it's like $240 million. Okay. $240 million statewide, which is less than, I think it's 2.49, I think, a percentage increase from last year. Remember, we're 48th in the country. So no cost of living adjustment, inflation, none of that. $240 million is what Miami-Dade is able to collect just by the referendum that we intentionally put on the ballot 2 years ago, and then 4 years before that, to make sure that we could pay educators and our staff, because the state is not doing right by us. So what we get locally, collect locally from the goodwill of our people. So thank you if you voted for it. Right? The goodwill that was done here in Miami-Dade that we're able to collect just for Miami-Dade County Public Schools is what our state thinks is adequate. funding for the entire state, because it is the same amount of money that they are dispersing statewide, which is what we collect locally because of our referendum for Miami-Dade County Public Schools. So, there's so much evidence on how little effort they put towards public education, how little funding, how, they're really trying to privatize public education. They're really trying to eradicate a system that creates equality and that creates, a balanced playing field, because we make sure in public education that every child, no matter their race, their gender, ethnicity, nationality, zip code, we want every child that comes through our doors to be safe, to feel, that they are in an environment that respects them, and that they get access to high quality education. That's what we're about. And that's exactly what our state government does not want us to do. Not an equal playing field, not the resources that we need for our public schools.
So, what are some victories that we saw in this last legislative session? And when I say victories, it could be in terms of defeating a bad bill or in terms of getting positive legislation passed.
I'm going to tell you that statewide for public education, I would not call anything a victory. I think it's lesser bad, right? Like, it's lesser of the two evils, right? But it's still bad. Like, they still did something about an educator prep program, which is like an extension of Stop Woke. So they're trying to say that prep courses where teachers are coming in, that they can't teach about diversity, equity, and inclusion and racism and all these things. And we know that that is going to disenfranchise our students, because if you are creating prep courses for teachers where they're not skilled and you're not creating competencies where they are well-rounded individuals that are knowledgeable about all these topics, you're creating a workforce that already has a limited scope, and that limited scope is going to limit the amount of education that a child can get. So we see that, even the controversy of the social media ban, right? The PTA, which rarely puts out a position, was against it. They're like, we believe in taking care of the safety of students, right? And of children. And, they should have limited access, but give that right to those parents. And, the social media is very similar to a lot of bills that have been enacted. It's just taking away rights, including from the adults. And it's fascism, right? It's fascism when you remove rights and privileges from people because of a political ideology that, the lawmakers have, or because they want to stay in power, or because they want to manipulate and control the majority. And so we're seeing a lot of that. I wouldn't say that we had... I wouldn't call anything a victory. Even the funding, 2.49% increase in Miami is not a victory. I think that we have to do better, and we have to do better by making sure that we are electing people that care about folks and about our conditions and how we improve, because unfortunately it's so expensive to live in Miami-Dade, and there's not enough workforce housing that people are leaving, and the people that are suffering are going to be our students who don't get a well-trained teacher that can take them to that higher level where they'll have access to more opportunities and in their future. So I think that there's a lot to really unpack and to really understand that, our legislature tries to package things one way, or they'll make it so bad at the beginning of session that when they make it less bad, we have people around the state that are like, well, yeah, that was a victory. Well, was it really a victory? I can't say that, and I'm not going to say that. So I'm not gonna play that game. I don't think that our state legislature has done enough. I certainly know that they have not done it for education or working people. They actually created another bill that was an addition to the anti-union bill that they passed last year. So we see just attacks on a smaller scale, but we can't think that because it's a smaller scale attack that we fared better. No, they're still attacking working people, still attacking education, still limiting our free speech, still removing our rights. And so we have to know what these things are so that we can make a difference and change them.
So, you hit on something very important, again, going back to elections have consequences.
Yeah.
But, we've got school board races coming up on the ballot this year. So what are some things that people should be looking for, thinking about as they're deciding who they're going to cast their vote for? Because, y'all, I know that I hopefully nobody on watching this show would do that, but some people just hit the top of the ticket, whether it be president, governor, whatever, and they don't vote for every single seat that's on the ballot. So we certainly don't want people skipping over any seats, but definitely not school board. So Karla, can you shed a little light on that so folks know what to think about as they review their?
Absolutely. Thank you. That's a great question. And I couldn't agree with you more. We do focus a lot on the top of the ticket, and all, local elections are extremely important because they govern what happens locally here directly to you. So please, y'all, vote all the way down, know the issues, ask a friend. If you don't know, ask us. We'll put out endorsements as well. There's so many things that, community and allied groups share because we want to elect better people. But I'll tell you this, there are going to be elections. We know that some of the current school board members were appointed by the governor. So this will be like their first time on an election cycle where they're candidates and they have to campaign. We're looking to make sure that we hear the things that we need to hear. One of the things that's been really interesting in the month of March is that DeSantis lost a lot in the month of March. Besides losing, his presidential bid to, being a candidate for president, he did a lot of backwalking in March. He did a press conference saying that book bans was not a real thing in the state of Florida, which we know is false. We know that they've been banning books on Celia Cruz, Roberto Clemente in Miami-Dade County Public Schools. They removed the book of Amanda Gorman, the poem, The Hill We Climb, all these things, which has nothing, by the way, these books have nothing to do with the pornography that they're trying to scare us with, because they don't exist. So, what these Moms for Liberty are out there creating these culture wars, saying that we're trying to protect children from these books that are not age appropriate, is just a boogeyman. It is a fallacy. It is a fictitious, story to try to create some kind of attention, because these books don't exist in our classrooms. And they're using that to manipulate things and really understand what their true intent is, which they have a racist malice where they're trying to remove books of diverse backgrounds, diverse authors, diverse thinking, characters that are LGBTQ plus. So he did some backwalking on that, which only acknowledges that culture war is not working. People don't want to be told what they can and cannot read. People don't want to feel like they're in Cuba or in Nicaragua or Venezuela, or these places where you're being told what you can and cannot do. I mean, this isn't this isn't a fascist state, but these are fascist ideologies and fascist characteristics, and people are seeing that. And so he had to backwalk that. We saw that when they rejected the implementation of Stop Woke, right? That was a huge win. That was a huge victory, because they're saying, hey, you can't, remove these things from our schools. But yet they double down and they create these programs for education where teachers are not allowed to learn these things so that you can implement them in your pedagogy. We saw that even with the settlement that they had to do with Equality Florida, right? Don't Say Gay bill, right? And parental rights, right? They call it one thing, but we know it's something different. That was something that he has to walk back now, because teachers were saying the same things. Hey, we want to be able to show our students that they're safe in our classrooms. And if that means that I'm displaying a little sticker, a flag, a sign, something that lets you know that this is a safe space for everyone, we want to be able to put these signs up. They're going to have to clarify all of that. They're going to have to clarify the fact that we've never taught children to be gay, because guess what? You can't teach that. You cannot teach that. And they know that because they're over the curriculum. And so the curriculum has never had it. It's never been part of our curriculum. But they create these culture wars and these made up stories to try to create fear in the community, divide people, silo them so that they're all fighting individually and not collectively. And I think that people have seen that. And people are creating these networks where they're becoming allies and they're fighting and pushing back together. And that's what's going to make the difference. And because of those things, and because of the pushback, and because these things impact everyone, because there are families, whether you're Republican, Independent, or Democrat, all families have a member that is gay. All families have members that are immigrants, right? Families care about their access to education. Families care about teaching with authenticity. And so all these things that they're trying to manipulate around, even people that go to church understand that a woman has the right to choose, and that a woman should have bodily autonomy, and they should be able to make decisions with their doctors and choose the right path for them. And people are seeing that, and they're seeing that these culture wars are wrong. And so the last month in March, there was a lot of backpedaling, a lot of backwalking, which for me is just a clear sign that their agenda and their rhetoric and what they think is going to bring their base out actually isn't working, and it's backfiring on them. So we need to do our job now, which is register people to vote, register people to vote, register people to vote, and then go out and vote.
That part. And I mean, it was very interesting in terms of I noticed the walk back as well. And I think that was a byproduct of his failed presidential bid, because when he, went, stumping up to Iowa and New Hampshire and all that, people looking at him like, well, we don't care about that. You banned books. That's cute. Okay. But how is that going to affect what's happening at my kitchen table? How is that going to put more food on my table? How is that going to reduce my property insurance? Right. So folks are looking at this like it didn't resonate the way he thought it would. And then as he's losing all of these legal challenges, now he's got to walk everything back to be like, no, the intent really isn't that. Well, don't pee on me and tell me it's raining. Right?
That's right. That's right.
We know the difference.
Yeah.
So Karla, can you share with us how people can learn more about what United Teachers of Dade are doing and how they can support, and whether it's sharing the word, volunteering, whatever the case may be?
Absolutely. Thank you. So you can visit us at utd.org. We have social media. So we're on X, Instagram, Facebook. But find us. And if you know somebody that works for Miami-Dade County Public Schools, tell them to join the union. If you have access to join a union too, forget United Teachers of Dade, just unions in general. This is working people. This is the middle class. This is what puts benefits and wages and lifts all boats. Join your union and encourage others that can join United Teachers of Dade to join the union, because we're fighting for our contracts. We're fighting to make sure that our educators, our education support professionals have a contract that gives them the access to wages, healthcare benefits, things that are extremely important. And we know that if we lose the union, we lose that contract. And it's going to take Miami-Dade County Public Schools decades, to recover, and it's going to set us back in an already fragile system, because we have vacancies in our classrooms, because we're 48th in the state, in terms of how statewide, how we get funded. All these things impact education, and so we need to be strong in our collective. So tell people to join the union. And if you want to help us and volunteer, you can always call us at 305-854-0220. We'd love to have you. We are a community of community members. And so we like to be involved in everything, because everything impacts education.
Absolutely. And just so everybody knows, I will be dropping the link in the comments. So that way, if you missed it, don't worry. Just go right down to the comments and click on the link to learn more. Definitely follow them on socials. Follow Karla on socials, because her TikToks be fire. I'm just saying. So Karla, thank you so much for joining us on Mondays with Melba. And thank you for all the hard work you're doing in our community and for our kids. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, sister. I appreciate you too. Keep it up.
Thank you. All right, y'all. Well, take good care, and we will see you again next week for another Mondays with Melba. Bye.